Hello Broncos country, welcome back to a new video, and today we are going to be talking about our defense, how good it's got indoor and free agency and all of our players, and we're going to be talking about how good our defense will be next year. Let's get right into it. First, let's talk about our two signings and free agency, one linebacker and one safety. First, let's talk about Dre Greenlaw. I feel he's a very good linebacker. I'm going to put his grades from last season on the screen, and this is only in a 3-game span. And he did that good. He's pretty good coverage-wise. I would rate him a 80 at passing coverage. Overall grade in the run stopping, I would rate it like a 85. From his best season now, let's put his stats on the board from 2023 and 2024. Oh, and by the way, these are good stats, but in 2024, he actually only played 2 games against the Rams and the Dolphins. That just showed you how good of a linebacker he is, and it's going to be exciting to see him play for the Broncos. Also, the 49ers went to his door and wanted to pay him more than the Broncos. But he said no, and said he wanted to play for the Broncos. So that's pretty special that players want to come to this team. Now let's talk about someone different. Let's talk about Talanoa Hufanga. I am going to put his stats on the board, but before I do that, let's talk some backstory. He's had some pretty bad injuries, but the Broncos have the best nutrition staff and the best people to keep people healthy staff in the NFL, and I believe that the injuries for both of these guys will probably stop and we won't see a lot of it. So let's put the stats on the board. There are some good stats, and I forgot to mention he's an All-Pro in the fact the Broncos can get an All-Pro on their team. It's pretty exciting. I'm pretty sure we signed Talanoa Hufanga 3 years, $45 million, and I think it was $25 million guaranteed. And we also got Dre Greenlaw, 3 years, $35 million, and also Talanoa Hufanga is 25, and Dre Greenlaw is 27. So they're both very young, and they both have bright futures on the Denver Broncos. Now let's talk about the Broncos' whole defense line. First step, we have Zach Allen. Let's talk about him. He was a very good defense alignment this year, and I'm going to put his stats up on the board. So obviously, you can see. He's very good, and I think he can have that same production next year, and he's one of the best defense ends in the NFL. Now let's talk about John Franklin Myers. This is a very good top defense end in the NFL this year, had a breakout season, and I think he could do the same next season. And he's one of the most underrated defensive players in the league, and we should talk about him more. Now let's talk about DJ Jones. He's a very good defense alignment, a very good run stopper, and isn't that bad at sacking people. Let me put his stats on the board. Like I said, he's a good run stuffer, but when you look at defense line, you don't look at guys who can get a bunch of sacks. You look at guys who can stop the run. Obviously, you might want them to get sacks, but usually you just want them to be good run stuffers, and that's what DJ Jones is. Next, we're talking about Malcolm Roach, and I'm going to put his stats on the board. Malcolm Roach is also a good run stuffer and is pretty good at other stuff too, but I feel like he's a good rotational guy, and I feel like the Broncos could still get a rookie in this year's draft class, but maybe they do want to stick with these older guys. And now let's talk about our outside linebackers, a inside linebacker. First step, let's talk about Nik Bonitto, great outside linebacker. He was in conversation of getting Defensive Player of the Year and had a breakout season, and I think he could have another season like this next season. We know he's been training hard so far this offseason. Now let me put his stats on the board. Obviously, as you can see, Nik Bonitto is a very good outside linebacker, and I feel like he can have the same production next season, and maybe even better, we haven't seen outside linebacker production like this since Von Miller and Bradley Chubb. Also, like I said, Nik Bonitto has been training with someone in that guy, I guess has been praising Nik Bonitto, and he's even quoted saying the pass rushing is going to be good in Denver. Now, let's talk about Jonathan Cooper, another great outside linebacker. I feel he's the most underrated outside linebacker in the NFL. He's really good at putting pressure on the quarterback, and he's a good tackler. The thing he probably should get better with is his pass coverage, but that might not be a big problem. He's not terrible, but he's also not good. Let me put his stats on the board. Again, really good production we haven't had. Someone have 10 more sacks since Von Miller and Bradley Chubb, and I think he can do the same thing next year. I think he could actually do it better. But yeah, I feel like he's one of the more underrated defensive players in the league, and I feel he'll be talked about more next year. Next up, let's talk about Alex Singleton. He only played until Week 3 because of an ACL tear, but he played the whole Week 3 game when he got the ACL tear in the first quarter. We saw very good plays from him all the way until the ACL injury. He told Sean Payton after the game he could have played 3 more games as he felt like his ACL wasn't even torn. He's a great linebacker, and he played really tough. And he showed us how tough he was in Week 3 leading the Broncos in tackles while having an ACL torn, and him and Dre Greenlaw are going to be a scary linebacker duo for teams in the NFL who have to play us next season. Next up, we're talking about Patrick Surtain, and all I have to say is Defensive Player of the Year. Next up, we have Riley Moss stepped up for this year at corner and played a really good intel. He had an injury against the Chargers, then he played slightly worse, and he struggled in the game against the Bengals. Otherwise, he's really good in his first starting season as a corner, and I'll put his stats on the board. So very good for his first time in the NFL starting at corner this season. I believe he's due for a breakout season, the next season. Riley Moss and Patrick Surtain are going to be scary next season for receivers and quarterbacks in the NFL. Next up, and the last guy we're talking about, Brandon Jones. He played very good and was one of the best free safeties in the NFL. In overall, he's a great player and a great teammate, and I will put his stats on the board. As you can tell, he has really good stats, and he was very helpful on this defense this year, and I think he can have the same production next season and maybe a tad bit better, and hopefully we can sign him back after next season. Also, pairing him with Talanoa Hufanga is going to be a deadly duo in the NFL next season at safety, and it's going to make wide receivers and quarterbacks afraid of playing this defense, and the Broncos will probably have one of the best defenses or the best defense in the NFL next season. So that was all we have today. Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye.